Hello again, Steve here, and today I wanted to ramble a little bit along the lines of what Molyneux, Stefan Molyneux, talks about in his universal preferable behaviors. And I wanted to give my few cents worth into this because I think it's an extremely important concept because it bridges over all the different religions. It's not in contrast with them, I wouldn't say, except for those religions that do not have universal ethics, which I have mentioned here before, I think. But those that do, or those people who aspire to have universal ethics, I think it's an important concept to grasp hold of because, um, well, I think it's easy to understand. I think that's probably the starting point, really, of something that's going to work. Does it have simplicity to it? Because a lot of times when things are extremely complex, I mean, I have read a little bit of philosophy, Nietzsche and Emerson and these guys, and whoa, man, are they ever verbal contortionists? I tell you, it's very challenging to get through it. Thomas Aquinas and all these kind of guys. How about something simple, right? So, universally universally preferable behavior. Now, a lot of times I've found people talk about how this is an impossible concept because people's preferences are all over the place. But I think it's important for us to look at those two words. Universal means everywhere and always, and prefer means that would be the choice from one to the other, right? But I think the word preferable is important because it has in it the able on the end. And able means the possibility of, really, essentially. So it's not, so something can't be, there's no such thing as something universally preferred because there's people who prefer all sorts of stuff. People who prefer stuff that's not sustainable, for example. So say somebody's morality. Say somebody come up with the idea of the morality of rape has to be universally preferred because everybody he or she knows likes to rape. Let's just say whatever. But how can that be sustainable? Because in order for that to be a moral structure, a universally on all times and all places, everybody would have to be simultaneously raping and being raped at the same time. For otherwise, the moment that person is not raping, that person is immoral. So it doesn't make any logical sense. And furthermore, if everybody believed that rape was preferred, universally preferred, then if they're being raped, they're doing that with consent, and therefore it's a self-detonation of itself. Sex which is consensual is by definition not rape. So it doesn't make any sense. However, when you look at it the other way around, when you say the moral is no rape, then is it possible for everybody at all times not to rape? Does society continue, basically? Do we continue to survive and so on? Yes, the answer is yes. We don't have to be violating each other constantly to live, to get along, and what have you. We can still involve ourselves in the physical activity of that, but it's voluntary and therefore it's not considered rape. So I think that it's key to look at the word with the able on the end of it. Is it possible? So it's not like, I don't think he's ever putting forth the idea that this is what everybody is going to do, or any illusion that that anytime soon people are going to be moral. But it's a logical thing, right? Like that's the beauty of philosophy. It's, does it make logical sense? Does it have reasoning to it? And when you look at able, that means is the preference able? Is it preferable? So is it universal preference, is universally preferable not to steal? Well, if there's ever any society that doesn't steal from one another, that's evidence that it's possible. Therefore, it's able, right? And would it be universally preferable to steal, to have that as a morality? Well, if it just play the, just all we got to do is play the sort of the mind thought of, is everybody at the same time able to steal from one another? Well, if everybody's stealing and that's everybody's morality, then the one being stolen from actually believes in the morality of stealing. Therefore, when being stolen from, that's not, has no moral issue with that, and therefore agrees to have the thing taken from them, and therefore it's not theft. See, it just detonates itself. So there's only a few things, and if you notice throughout all of this, that when you look at the different religions that have moral constitutions, if you will, like the Christians have like the Ten Commandments, and the Buddhists have their precepts and so on. These are prohibitions, and they're very similar. You know, you take the Christian morality and you take out the things that you're supposed to do, like the first three, especially like, you know, honor the Sabbath day. These are more of a Catholic thing, I guess, but the ones that are thou shalt not, right? So, and it's possible to, depending on your definition of it, to not steal, to not murder people, to not commit adultery, so on, to not have false idols. Of course, I guess any idol would be a false idol. That's probably the point, right? And then if you look at the Buddhist precepts, they're very, very similar. They're in there. There's theft. There's lying. You know, same with the Christians. False witness. That's lying. There's you know, illicit sex, and depends on their definition of that. I suppose rape would be illicit sex. It's not. Illicit would be something that is not approved of. So if one person is not approving of it, that's rape by definition. So that would be illicit automatically, right? Because it's not approved of, and so on. So when you have, I think the only way that we can have universal preferable behaviors, it's almost like it's universally preferable non-behaviors, if you think about it. I think of it that way, really, because it's what we're not allowed to do. That's the only way we can have a morality or an ethic, is prohibitions against certain actions. So I just thought of that. It just came to me. So actually we have to redefine this as universally preferable non-behaviors, things that we're not going to do. What do we prefer? What are we going to say that we do not want to do? And that's the core of our ethics, I think. And this is important because in the Inner Genie Project, we're talking about how to get ourselves motivated on a very, very deep level to function better and more clear and more productive in the world, right? And if we have a way of governing ourselves, because I work as a mechanic part of the time, right? And what I notice is that pretty much all engines that are machines that are built by man to do work, they have what's called a governor on them. It's a control mechanism in order for them to do their job correctly. Well, we find that with human beings, if we're not restrained